Hi there, this is Carl Irwin, the Common Magician, and as usual, I have something interesting to show you. I've got a watch here. This is just a regular watch, could be a borrowed watch. It's better if it is a borrowed watch. I'll talk more about that in a little bit here, but you can see the movement of the second hand, and there's a couple of ways to approach this idea. One is you could have the spectator perhaps name a number 1 through 12. That's one way to do this, or you just have them focus and concentrate on the movement of the second hand, one way or the other. But the idea there is that if you watch closely and you concentrate and focus, watch what happens. You'll see that time briefly stopped there as you were concentrating. So you could stop the second hand on a specific number. I've done that before with borrowed watches. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But that's one interesting effect using sort of a mentalism sort of effect using a borrowed watch. We'll talk about watches here in a little bit. But before we do that, I'll address a couple of other ideas. Another one, kind of a telekinesis mentalist sort of idea here, is using a coin. So I've got a Kennedy $50. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place it on the table right here. And I just want you to watch it. I'm going to focus. I'm going to keep my hands away. I'm just going to focus and concentrate on this. Maybe you can focus and concentrate with me and watch it very closely. I don't know if you saw that. Very, very small. Watch this again. Put it out here a little further out in the table. See if you can see this happen. See that? So kind of an interesting little effect using a coin that can be done somewhat in an impromptu setting. Another idea is on the same lines. You could have a little bit more of a theme with this, a little bit more on the nose, but you've got something like a compass. This is kind of an antique looking compass, and a compass always reads north. And if I set this down the table, you can see it pointing right now north. And we're going to try something here, just using sort of my own field. We're going to see if we can confuse this compass a little bit. So watch. I don't know if this is showing up on camera. We can reverse the polarity of the compass. So another idea there. Again, a little bit on the nose for what we're doing, but it is an idea. Another idea is I've got a cup, just a little cup, and inside the cup I've got a couple of items. I've got some sugar cubes, which are hard to come by, but these are sugar cubes. And I did a Rene Levant illusion, kind of a tribute on the channel a while back, doing this illusion. This is a very different kind of approach to it. But the idea here is we put in 1, 2, and then the third sugar cube we're going to put away. And we see what happens. 3. 1, 2, 3. We'll try this again. We'll cover them up. And if we give it a shake, watch what happens. 2. 1, 2. And the other one is where we left it. So kind of a classic little routine there. You could do a chop cup kind of routine, and certainly, as we'll talk about, you could do an impromptu chop cup kind of routine with really nothing but borrowed objects. So what's going on here? Obviously, we're dealing again with the thumb tip, and we're hitting on more ideas and concepts related to the magnetic thumb tip. This is a bit controversial for people. There are other items that are touted as being much superior to the magnetic thumb tip. I disagree. I actually own some of these. I've owned a silent assistant. If you know what that is, you know what it is. It's very much related to the sort of PK ring. And I actually have a kinetic ring. This is a gold band. It matches my wedding band. I don't use it very much. I've had it for a while. One problem with PK rings is that they're always on you, and you can't turn it off, right? If you're going to keep it and carry it around with you, you're always kind of fighting against it with certain items, and it can get in the way. That's the advantage of the magnetic thumb tip, and using this for sort of telekinetic effects or holdouts, the magnetic holdout, as you can do with a chop cup kind of situation, is that you can get rid of it. It's entirely ditchable. The other thing is that if you're not, if you're a teenager and you have no reason to wear rings, unless it is your style, right? And many of you out there, it wouldn't be your style to wear a ring. It's one thing to have a wedding band and to have a ring on the left hand on that ring finger, and there's a bit of a cultural justification for having it. Or it's another thing to kind of have that sort of style to wear rings and just have that kind of aesthetic to your personality. It's another thing to not have that, not be married, and then be wearing a magnetic ring. It really stands out. So that's where the silent assistant comes into play. But then again, you have something that is, I don't know, it's kind of out of place in the palm of the hand. It really has a kind of a specific use, the waving over of the hand kind of use, right? This can really go anywhere. You can have it on the finger, but you can also palm it out, right? If you wanted to palm this out, you can do a lot of these other things, and it's highly ditchable. So it's a magnet that can be worn and gotten rid of and rung in and taken out. It's really quite a versatile little idea, the magnetic thumb tip, and has a lot of applications in the mentalist telekinetic sort of vein. So what are the different things that are going on here? One is the watch stopping routine. A few things about this. You can do it with a borrowed watch. You need to use a quartz, sometimes called a Japanese or Japan movement, the Japanese quartz movement, as opposed to a mechanical movement, which is sort of the mechanized wind-up kind of movement. It needs to be a quartz movement watch in order for this to work. It won't work with any other type. One issue with that is that people don't wear watches as much as they used to. But they do. They still do. Particularly ladies will wear watches. Particularly ladies of a certain age and above will tend to wear watches. Often they'll wear watches that are kind of costume jewelry sorts of watches. My wife has a handful of watches. She'll switch on and off every now and then. She also wears a smart watch, which obviously this won't work with that. But you could borrow a watch as long as it's a quartz movement watch. I always wear a quartz movement watch. I wear this one. I wear a minimalist watch. And I've covered why on the channel before. A minimalist watch meaning that there's no numbers on the face of the watch, and it has just the hash marks, and there's no logo that can be seen for certain kinds of effects that I like to do with this type of watch. I can add to my repertoire the watch stopping effect. And this is done very simply by bringing the magnet close to the movement on the watch. And what I do is I keep it low on the watch band in the back, and I just creep it up until I touch the edge of the watch. And it will affect the movement and essentially stop it. So as I do this, you can watch carefully as the second hand is moving. And I'll creep my magnet on the thumb tip up close behind, and eventually that movement will stop, and it will stop in place. And as I bring my thumb down away, the movement will start back up again and continue. So you can call out, or have the spectator call out a number 1 through 12, and you can actually have it stop on that number right in front of them as they're concentrating on it. A very, very nice kind of surprising effect. I find that it's very effective if you stop it and hold it just for a few seconds and then let it resume. Make sure your movements are very slow, but if you hold it for just a couple seconds and then let it resume, they will do kind of a double take motion, like, did that just do what I think it did, right? And I find it's very impactful if you have the spectator concentrate on it, rather than if you say, I'm going to concentrate on it and watch the second hand and watch what I can do. I think it's more impactful if you allow them to do it. So the watch stopping effect. A little bit controversial because there is some concern about ruining watches. Can a magnet ruin a quartz movement watch? Yes, it is possible on a very cheap, inexpensive watch with a very low battery, that using a magnet against the watch can damage it in some way where the movement will stop working properly. Have I ever done that? No, I've never done it. I've only ever heard about it. I've done this to a lot of different watches. Do it at your own risk. I do it. I do it with borrowed watches whenever I can. It's not very often, but whenever I have one of these on me, which not very often, but whenever I do, I have done this before, a couple times a year, over the past few years, where I've stopped a spectator's watch. And if I don't have a spectator's watch, I'm perfectly happy using my own watch. For the parlor or stage kind of environment, if you're doing a parlor kind of act, you could have several watches and have the spectator choose a watch, right? Different types of watches or clocks or whatever, and you can stop any of them and stop one and then another, whatever the case may be. So there's actually quite a bit of literature on using magnets to stop watches. There's even a book, I think, a recent booklet that came out just on that topic. So very interesting idea to investigate, kind of an old school mentalism sort of act. Another idea is to have a magnetic coin, which I talked about briefly on the last video. In this case, this is a magnetic $50, and this table is 2 inches thick. 2 inches thick if the coin is magnetic, not if it is a metal coin, a steel coin, but rather it has a magnet in it. A neodymium, I think I'm saying that right, rare earth magnet can be very powerful through even a very thick table. So I set this on the table, try to find a place where the table has an imperfection and it seems to have a little bit of a hump or a bump on it, so it wants to move. In this coin, I move it until it wants to spin kind of freely, and then what you do is you have the hands down, kind of keep the shoulders out, and just bring the thumb tip up to the table, and try to catch the negative polarity and see if you can move the coin. You can see that I can move it there. So one idea. I find that this is a little bit more impactful doing it this way rather than trying to do it over, where you're trying to use the negativity of the magnet, because you may have a situation where the magnet flips and comes at the hand. And also, I think this is a little too obvious, right? A little too obvious. Whereas if you have a thick table and you try to move it from underneath with the magnet out of view, I think this is a little bit more surprising, right? The fact that the table is thick, and also the fact that that thumb tip can go on the thumb and I can bring my hands away and they can look under the table. There's nothing there. There's nothing to find, nothing to catch, because it is a thumb tip after all. A little bit more direct is, again, kind of a parlor sort of effect is to use a compass. This was a gift to me, family gift. I have no idea, what the symbolism of it was. Maybe they felt I needed to find my way. I don't know. But anyway, it's kind of just a trinkety sort of a gift, a piece that can sit on a mantle. You could try to come up with a storyline to go with something like this, but a real functioning compass, and they can inspect it and move it and see that it does point to north. Because it is a magnet, because it is a compass, and because this is a strong magnet, I don't even have to get close. You'll find that you can be quite distant on a compass magnet and really impact it. I was just able to spin it around entirely from this distance. So you can do that, and it's great too because there's nothing to find. Nothing to find. Hands are empty. There's nothing here with a magnetic thumb tip. So, and it's ditchable as well. So another idea is a compass, a little bit direct in terms of what is causing it. I mean, people know that a compass is magnetic, and what would affect it? Well, magnets. So the trick there is they'd be looking for the magnet, but they wouldn't be able to find anything anywhere. There's that. And then, of course, the chop cup concept. So I've got a cup, and then what I have here is actually one of my sugar cubes is actually magnetic. So I have this is actually a foam cube, and inside I've implanted a small magnet in one of these, and I can dump out 3 and show the cup relatively empty there, and then I can take 1, drop it in, 2, drop it in, 3, take it away, and without any kind of sleight of hand, I can then take the cup and give it a shake, and then I can dump out 1, 2, 3. And I've got three sugar cubes back there again. I can do the same kind of thing where I gather them up on the table, and you can see that, and I can give it a shake. And then if I pick up the cup, you'll see that I've got only 2 sugar cubes, and the cup is empty. There's nothing else in there. And then I can, of course, bring out my 3rd one. Mysteriously, it's gone back. So chop cup kind of routine, or this sort of Rene Levant sort of non-sleight of hand method for that sort of an effect using a magnet. You can carry also with a magnetic thumb tip a spare small magnet or a shim, a magnetic shim. And if you ball that up into something like a dollar bill or a napkin, you can instantly do a chop cup sort of routine without any other extra apparatus, without having to have a ring on, just using the magnetic thumb that you can get rid of. Then you can ditch it, you can get rid of it, and there's nothing to find, nothing to see there, and you can move on with normal life without having your ring sticking to ordinary objects and having to carry around that magnetic PK ring. So anyway, magnetic thumb tip, just to exhaust those ideas with you here very briefly. There's a lot of opportunity, and as I said before, a magnetic thumb tip with the right size can still have the payload of a thumb tip. You can still use it for bills or billets as they sit in a different place against the pad of the thumb. If you have a jumbo thumb tip with a magnet glued to the tip, you could still vanish a silk if you really wanted to, and go on from there. So again, just to impress upon you a few things as we're up probably getting to the end of these. I have a couple more ideas I'll probably share here before we're done talking about this. We've talked about how it can be used as a support structure. We've talked about how it can be used as a holdout device because you can actually hold something in it that is bigger than the payload, but it can be gripped kind of as a ring inside and held out like a piece of silverware spoon. We've talked about magnetic holdout and exhausted that here. Used it as a PK device, a telekinetic device to stop watches, move coins, move shimmed items, those kinds of ideas. We've talked about how you can use it as a form, structural form. other things to talk about here in the future yet to go, but I do want to talk just about this in general, thumb tips in general. One, about exposure. Some of you may feel that the thumb tip is highly exposed. Some of you may be irritated that I'm exposing these things here. Just to reiterate on teaching magic online, is this exposure? Yes. Does it matter? No. Am I wrong about that? No. If you think this is exposure, are you wrong about that? At least in an offensive way? Yes. That's where I come down. Okay. Nobody is looking on YouTube to find out how to do magic tricks just to know them. Not really. I mean, there may be a few people. And if they are, who cares? They have a right to figure out magic tricks. I mean, they do. They do. Anybody can figure this out if they want to, right? They can go buy, the information. They can go to a library and find it. And in the 21st century, late 20th century, 21st century now we're in, you can get on YouTube and learn about magic. Does it matter? No. Is it going to change the public opinion about magic and how effects work? No. It just isn't. It just isn't. It just doesn't have enough impact. People aren't looking. People don't care. Those that do care and are looking, they don't matter in the grand scheme, right? So, is the thumb tip a spoiled method? Only in one way. And I'm going to spell this out for you. I've already alluded to it. People do not know about the thumb tip, and they do not know about what thumb tips can be used for. They know how to vanish a 6-inch silk. That's what they know. That's all they know. Thumb tips, fake thumbs as they know them, are used to vanish a silk. That's what they know. Or a handkerchief. They don't even understand the concept of a silk. But that is how it comes in the child's magic set. That is the way it's been parodied on movies and films. Someone in a recent video online mentioned, well, anybody that's seen Night at the Museum, right? There's a scene in Night at the Museum, the first movie, where this is fully exposed and vanishing a silk. That's all that people know. Don't vanish silks. It's a hokey trick. It's a stupid trick. It's a child's trick. Don't do that. Don't vanish silks. 9 times out of 10, the people that do vanish silks don't even do it in the right way. They don't even do it in a very good way, right? If you look online and you find tutorials for vanishing silks and you see all of this, I'm ranty right now, okay? But you see all of this right? This stuff, right? And people are serious trying to teach it in that way. Don't do that. Just don't do that trick, right? It's a dumb trick anyway. It's a dumb trick anyway. Who carries around a 6-inch lime green silk? The best thing I've seen recently that approaches that may have been worth doing it, and the time is running out for that, was a product that was for sale out there that was a mask, right? A pandemic-driven prop that was a face mask, and it was a silk that is used for that specific trick. With good handling, not that handling, but proper good handling, maybe that was an effect worth doing with a thumb tip. But that time's running out now. That product is going to run its course for sales, and no one's going to want to buy it anymore, and that'll be the end of it, right? Don't do that trick. That's the only trick. It's the only one. When people see a bill change, they do not know that it is accomplished with a thumb tip. When they see billet switches, they have no clue that it's done with a thumb tip. Any of these tricks that I've shown you here, nobody has a clue that a thumb tip is utilized to do any of that. There's no concept. No concept. Even among magicians, that standing card effect, some magicians know about that. A lot of magicians don't even know about it. They don't even think that would be a use for a thumb tip, right? There's unorthodox ways to use them. A torn and restored sugar packet, right? Another one we've looked at on the channel in the past, linking linking paper clips, right? Linking safety pins, small paper napkin balls, various things you can do. And not just vanishing stuff, but changing the quantity or transpositions of things. People generally, magicians generally don't think thumb tip for a lot of magic that they see that can be accomplished with a thumb tip. And the general public has no clue. No clue. Is the thumb tip spoiled for the general public? No. No, they have no idea. They have no clue what this thing can do. None whatsoever. 6-inch silk. That's where the line is drawn. That's it. Okay? So get off of it and find other uses. And as one person mentioned in one of the recent videos, dust off the thumb tip and start finding ways that you can utilize it in your everyday existence, right? Just kind of going out and about. Either specialized or in, hopefully, as I'm demonstrating here, more general kinds of impromptu uses. So anyway, that's magnetic thumb tips. It's probably the last we'll talk about that. But so many things you can do with a magnetic thumb tip in terms of as a holdout device for chop cup, magnetized shimmed items, stopping watches, telekinetic kinds of ideas. Just very, very interesting ideas that you can use with the presence of a magnet hidden away in the thumb tip device. Nobody's thinking about that. Nobody's thinking about that. So till the next video, this one's a little bit longer, but we tried to cover a lot, try to be comprehensive there in terms of the magnetized end of thumb tip usage. Good luck with that. Happy magicking.